and welcome back to another absolutely terrible book review. I am wearing the most ridiculously beautiful cape type big sleeve thing today because why not? I need some joy in my life after reviewing all these terrible books recently. Ahead of the It Ends With Us film being released, I thought I would revisit the horrific world of Colleen Hoover and review another one of her terrible books. A while ago, maybe like a year ago or something like that, I don't know exactly, I reviewed her novel It Ends With Us, which is, as I say, being made into a film. It is being released a little bit later this month, I think. They're doing promo for it now. I'm sure it's going to be just as horrifying as the book.
We all have an idea of what love can be.
I want to see you again.
Now you see me. But 15 seconds. That's all it takes.
And so I thought, with all this publicity and people talking about it again, now would be a good time to revisit the series and read and review the sequel, It Starts With Us. So these books do deal with a hell of a lot of difficult topics like domestic violence and child abuse, so please take care going into this video. Feel free to skip it and give it a miss if you need to, not a problem at all. Now let's do a really quick recap of the It Ends With Us plot, in case you haven't seen that first video. If you want to though, linked in the description below, you go ahead. But basically, you had barely 21-year-old Lily Blossom Bloom, who owns a flower shop. She meets Ryle Kincaid, a 20-something-year-old neurosurgeon with anger issues, who immediately love bombs her, he very quickly marries her, and he impregnates her while continually abusing her, physically, mentally, and emotionally. While all this is going on, Atlas Corrigan comes back into her life, who was her childhood first love. Well, her childhood, not his. Atlas is now a chef, and back when he was 18, nearly 19, he squatted in an abandoned house opposite her childhood home and took her virginity when she was barely 15. Bit creepy. It Ends With Us is basically abuse, but try and make it sexy, the novel. Colleen likes to be like, oh no, it's a warning about domestic violence and abuse, it's a warning about abusive relationships, but the problems arise with the fact that Kyle, that would be a reasonable name, no, Ryle, even though he's labelled as abusive in this book, acts the exact same way as all of Colleen's other male protagonists. So why is it abuse in this case, but not abuse when her other characters do it? Make it make sense, Colleen. And not only that, you do have these problems where she does romanticize the abuse to some extent, to the point where you have these young girls shipping Lily and Ryle in videos and in reviews, and I hope I'm using that word correctly, I feel too old to say it seriously. Shipping. And they make TikToks about how hot it would be to be pushed down the stairs by Ryle, just like he did to Lily, and no, it's a problem. These books are horrifying. At the end of It Ends With Us, Lily had had her baby. It was about 11 months on after that. She'd started the process of divorcing Ryle, and she bumps into Atlas on the street, and they have this cute, oh my god, it's you, oh my god, it's you, and it's heavily implied they're going to get together and start dating, and that is exactly where this book picks up. It's like an hour after that meeting, right? What I will say is that this whole book is entirely pointless and did not need to exist. Colleen clearly only wrote it because she saw It Ends With Us getting popular and big on TikTok and making some money for her, and she thought, you know what, I could do with even more money, please. Let me write a sequel where nothing happens. And this is the problem. Nothing happens at all. There is no plot, there is no character development, there is nothing interesting. It's just scene after scene of random people talking about absolutely nothing at all. This book did not need to exist. So the first chapter opens, like a lot of Colleen Hoover books do, with something entirely pointless and unfunny happening that Colleen tries to play as humour. Basically, Atlas's restaurant, which is horrifically called Bibs. Colleen, stop naming stuff, please. Anyway, his restaurant has been broken into and some graffiti left on the wall, and it's a misspelling of the sweary version of the word bumhole. Now, I thought this whole bumhole thing was just a bad throwaway joke on the first page and that I didn't have to talk about it, but it turns out this is the joke of the book. This is the joke that Colleen thinks it's so hilariously funny she's gonna have as a running gag and keep coming back to every couple of chapters, and it happens again and again and again, and one of the final, powerful bits of dialogue is all about the word bumhole. It's really bad. It's really, really stupid. And I don't get it. I don't get the joke. The joke is apparently that someone can't spell the word bumhole and keeps putting the letter W in, and that's something that his mum also used to do when he was a kid, and that he would get annoyed because she was mispronouncing it and blah blah blah. But I don't get how bumhole and bumhole sound different. It's just bumhole. What am I missing? Where is the joke here? Where is the humour? I don't get it. Anyway, now it's also the point where we get a whole backstory from Atlas about how his mum verbally abused him a lot as a child and would call him a bumhole quite a lot. And this is all meant to be there as justification for why he thought it was okay to sleep with a 15-year-old child when he was legally an adult. Statutory rape is fine if you're damaged, apparently. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want to downplay the seriousness of child abuse in general. I don't want to seem like I'm making light of it. And I also think a book where we look at how child abuse affected someone and their life up into adulthood and as they get older, that's a fantastic thing to write about, to read about. I think that's really, really important to do. The problem is Colleen Hoover doesn't do it well. She doesn't do it thoughtfully. She doesn't do it with any care. She just uses past abuse as an excuse to try and justify current abuse. And that's where I have a lot of problems with her and her writing. I do discuss later in this book some different examples of where child abuse has been written well and, you know, it's a good, accurate portrayal of it and it's done with care and kindness as opposed to Colleen. So keep that in mind. We will be coming back to it later in the video. But for now, Atlas is talking to a man called Darren. I think we're supposed to remember him or recognise him from the first book, but I don't. And I'm not going back to look because I do not care that much. So honestly, all of Atlas's friends are just these interchangeable men. It doesn't really matter who it is because they're all the same. So he's talking to Darren. Not Darren, Darren. Darren suggests that the person who left the graffiti and broke in may have been a disgruntled employee. There was that guy who did the dishes before you hired Brad. What was his name? He was named after some kind of mineral or something. It was super weird. Quartz, I say. It was a nickname. I haven't thought about that guy in so long. I doubt he's holding a grudge against me after all this time. I fired him right after we opened because I found out he wasn't washing the dishes unless he could actually see food on them. Glasses, plates, silverware, anything that came back to the kitchen from a table looking fairly clean, he'd just put it straight on the drying rack. Now, one, that's gross. Yes, fire him. But two, is this self-awareness from Colleen or is she just this dense? Because she really can't speak about characters or people with super weird names, can she? When she's pumped out Atlas, Ryle, Leeds, Laken, Bayer, Colden, and so on and so on. Come on. It turns out that whoever broke in, all they stole was a bunch of croutons. Again, this is played for humour and as a joke, but it's just not funny. This is like typical MySpace girly era of, oh my god, lol, so random, saying funny words, croutons, croutons, croutons. That wasn't at all what I was expecting him to say. If someone broke into a restaurant and didn't take appliances or anything else of value, they probably broke in because they were hungry. I know that kind of desperation firsthand. I'm not reporting this. Darren turns to me. Why not? They might catch whoever did it. That's the point. I grab an empty box out of the dumpster and start picking up shards of glass. I broke into a restaurant once. Stole a turkey sandwich. So Colleen is constantly trying to set up and tell us that Atlas is this super good, really understanding guy, but she does it in such a bizarre way where she just keeps telling us over and over, he's great, he's good, he's kind, he's good, he's great, he's good, but she never really shows us it other than in things like this where it's like, yeah, but this is like the bare minimum you can ask of someone, you know, not wanting to call the police on clearly a hungry homeless person. Isn't that like the bare minimum of being a decent person? And the other things he does, it's all just bare minimum, and he's touted as this like godlike man, and come on, I swear the bar is on the floor for men these days. We also find out at this point that Atlas is opening a new restaurant called Corrigan's. I really don't care, to be honest. And as this is all taking place, literally like an hour after he met Lily for the first time in nearly a year, I open my mouth to respond, but I'm interrupted by an incoming text message. I don't think I've ever reached for my phone faster. When I see the text isn't from Lily, I deflate a little. I ran into her this morning while I was running errands. It was the first time we've seen each other in a year and a half, but she was late for work and I just received the text from Darren informing me we had a break-in. We parted somewhat awkwardly on the promise that she would text me once she got to work. It's been an hour and a half since then, and I still haven't heard from her. An hour and a half is nothing, but I can't ignore the nagging in my chest that's trying to convince me she's having doubts about everything that was said between us in that 5-minute exchange on the sidewalk. Mate, she's literally got a kid that's under a year old. She was in the middle of taking that child somewhere for childcare, and now she's got to work at the business that she owns. Like, give her a couple of hours to text you back. She has a lot to do. She has a lot going on in her life. Her priority isn't going to be texting you. An hour and a half is no time at all in the grand scheme of things. Stop it. I'm ready for this. More than ready. I pull up her contact in my phone. I've wanted to text her so many times over the last year and a half, but the last time I spoke to her, I left the ball in her court. She had so much going on. I didn't want to complicate her life even more. She's single now, though, and she made it sound like she was finally ready to give whatever she could between us a chance. However, she's had an hour and a half to think about our conversation, and an hour and a half is plenty of time to form regrets. Every minute that passes without a text is going to feel like a whole damn day. Stop it! An hour and a half, 90 minutes. Calm down. Give her a chance to breathe and eat and put her kid down for a second. I hate to say it, but she's a mother and a businesswoman. Some man who raped her as a child is not going to be her priority. Sorry. This impatience is not sexy. It's suffocating. Chapter 2. And it's Lily's chapter. My hands are still shaking, even though it's been almost 2 hours since I ran into Atlas. I can't tell if I'm shaking because I'm flustered or because I've been too busy to eat since I walked in the door. I barely had 5 seconds of peace to process what happened this morning, much less eat the breakfast I brought with me. See, she's a busy adult with responsibilities. Give her a chance. Not everything in the world is about your penis, Atlas. Come on. This is the first moment I've had to even take a bathroom break. And after looking at myself in the mirror just now, I kind of want to cry. I'm splotchy. I have carrots smeared across my shirt. My nail polish has been chipped since like January. Another reason not to have kids, isn't it? This sounds like hell. I find it interesting how Colleen, I've always said this, it's kind of, I've said it so many times now, it's like a catchphrase. Colleen has never written a womb that she can leave empty. She always has to impregnate every female character she writes. And it's very frustrating. It's very clear from all her books that Colleen is one of these, I think every woman should be a mum type people. And so every female character she writes has to become a mum. But then when she writes about being a mother, it just sounds like absolute hell. And like she's trying to convince us that she loves it and it's wonderful, when really we're like, mate, are you sure? Because you sound like you hate it. He looked so good. He smelled so good. I probably smell like breast milk. You can't make this stuff up, can you? If you'd asked me back when I was a teenager what I thought I'd be doing for a living as a 31-year-old woman, this wouldn't have even been in the top 100 list. Reviewing romance books with lines like, I probably smelled like breast milk. But again, I'm sure this is fairly realistic, probably. I don't know. I've never been pregnant, thankfully. What I do know is that it sounds like hell. I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but I hate that milky smell that babies and new mums have. It just makes me feel sick. That general baby smell, makes me want to vomit. Right, anyway, that's just me being gross about sensory things. Okay, then we get an insight into what co-parenting is like for Lily and Ryle, and this is kind of meant to be the main conflict of the book, but it never really comes up as a conflict. There's a lot of Lily worrying that it's going to be a conflict, but no real actual conflict. I also need to rant here, so give me a second. Listen to this. I lunge for my phone as if the text is about to self-destruct and I only have 3 seconds to read it. I shrink when I look at the screen. It's not from Atlas, but rather from Ryle. The text says, can she eat French fries? I shoot a response quick. Soft ones. I drop my phone on the counter with a thud. I don't like for her to have French fries too often, but Ryle only has her 1 to 2 days a week, so I try to make sure she gets more nutritious food when she's with me. And on the surface, this doesn't sound too bad, right? You know, he's checking in about his kids' needs while he's parenting. He's even stepping up to look after her 2 days a week. That's not good. That's, again, doing less than the bare minimum. I know they're not together, and I'm not going to get on at single parents for not seeing their kids enough because you have to, you make time where you can. The problem here is the checking in bit, right? This is his kid. He's the parent. He shouldn't have to check in with the mother every time he does something. He should know his child. He should know his child's needs. He should know what his child eats and take responsibility for making sure she has nutritious food. That shouldn't be on the mother alone. He shouldn't just be the fun babysitter who pops up every now and again and follows the mum's rules and relies on the mum entirely for emotional support while he's doing work. That's ridiculous. He should be an actual parent. A woman should be able to leave her child with the father and not have to repeatedly babysit the father the entire time. And sadly, this is an ongoing problem in society in general, and one which annoyingly books like this just normalise. Colleen Hoover isn't writing like this to critique Ryle or raise awareness of these issues. She's not trying to point out this is a flaw in him or critique it. She's trying to say this is a good thing. Look what Ryle's doing. He's actually parenting, but he's not parenting. He's being babysat by Lily. Colleen just thinks this is the way things are. Let's continue to present it as normal and humorous and not question it. And she's part of the problem. If you want to find out more about this issue from a feminist perspective, I do have a couple of book recommendations for you. So in Gemma Hartley's Fed Up, Emotional Labour, Women and the Way Forward, she writes about how when she was pregnant, she asked her husband to help make a decision about how to sterilise baby bottles, only to be met with this. I reached the edge of my mental capacity. I asked Rob to make a decision and he flat out wouldn't. I don't know, you're the one who knows these things. You know what we need more than I do. Except that I didn't. And what I did know had so much more to do with my personal research than some magical mum knowledge I was endowed with upon conception. Mums don't innately know what the next steps look like. From what to put on the baby register, to how to diagnose common infant illnesses, to what questions we should ask our doctors. But we learn. We put in the hard work, the time, the research, even when we don't find these things necessarily compelling or interesting, because if we don't do it, who will? And this is exactly the problem with both society in general and the Lily and Ryle relationship here. Why should Lily know what the kid eats, but the dad doesn't? It's his kid too. Why is he not put in the work when she's had to? Gemma goes on to say, and I've got quite a few bits to read for you here, but it's interesting stuff. She says that when she was pregnant, every decision I now made affected another person. The pressure to get it right was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before, and it was especially intense because even though it took two of us to make this baby, it was my responsibility to know what to do. And obviously, while you guys know I've not been pregnant myself and I never will be, this is a story I've heard repeatedly over and over and over again from friends and family who've been pregnant. It's always the woman who has to take responsibility to do these things, to be the one learning and pushing forward, because if she doesn't, who will? Gemma goes on to say pregnancy was physically exhausting, but perhaps even more mentally and emotionally draining. Rob was there for support when I asked him to be, but the details, anticipating the needs of a child not yet born, were mine to worry about. I was the one tasked with carrying around this encyclopedia of new information in my head, hoping that pregnancy brain wouldn't make me forget any of it. Rob could have read the pregnancy books. He could have looked up the articles on what to get for the baby, or how to prep and freeze homemade purees, or how to make DIY padsicles? Oh, padsicle. Oh, bless her. For my recovery period. Pregnancy's horrifying. People who go through being pregnant, they're heroes. I could never. Ugh. But it never even crossed his mind. He didn't need to educate himself on these things. I had educated myself for the both of us. Fathers-to-be don't take on the same emotional labour responsibilities very often, and we accept this as normal. We allow this line to be drawn between us. Helper on one side, responsible party on the other, even before the baby's born. We're responsible for the knowledge, the worry work, and the untransferable growing of a tiny human. And we're told to enjoy it. And like I say, this is what Colleen perpetuates not only in this book, but all her books. Look back at things like Verity, right? The mother in that, Verity herself, was demonized for not coping well postpartum, even though she was the only one having to deal with all the stresses and the knowledge and do everything herself. Gemma goes on to say, Rob was asking me what to do, asking for delegation because I was supposed to know what to do. Despite not knowing the answer, it's clear that I would need to figure it out and fast. I needed to know for both of us, and so a much deeper dive into our domestic dynamic began. I became the person who knew what needed to be done. Rob became the person I informed. This isn't to say he didn't do his part in parenting. He did. He changed diapers when I told him to. He learned the ropes when I showed him. And this is what we're seeing with Ryle here, where he doesn't even know the basics of what the baby can and can't eat. Because our social expectations for fathers are lower, they often get a pass when it comes to knowing all the idiosyncrasies involved in caring for their own children. They expect their partners to remember everything for them because they always have. They aren't accounting for the extra work that this emotional labour adds to our plates. They don't even see it. They see their help as enough because fatherhood isn't considered their job in the way motherhood is considered ours. And again, that's what we're seeing in this book. Lily's here trying to run her own business, navigate now having a dating life, trying to make herself clean and presentable for her job. All the while, she is having to babysit the father of her child, babysitting his child because he doesn't know how to just parent. And again, this isn't it's early days, he's still learning. It's been 11 months. If she's had time to learn, he's had time to learn. There's other books that cover this though. So there's the book All the Rage, in which Darcy Lockhart also calls out this problem, and she calls it being the default parent, and how that role is almost always put on women. And I could rant about this forever. If you want to find out more about those books, I will leave links and names to them in the video description below. When I made my video on Carissa Collins, I had one woman who was quite angry, being like, but you're not a parent, you don't know what it's like firsthand. And I'm like, no, you're right, I absolutely don't. But one, I do know what it's like to be a kid, so I can put myself in that perspective and be like, well, this is what I wanted from my parents when I was that age. But I also think that as a woman, we don't need to have been through it ourselves to be able to stand up for the rights of other women, you know? Like, it's like with anything. I don't need to have experienced racism to call out racism. I don't need to have experienced transphobia to call out transphobia. I'm going to do that anyway. And it's the same with this. When I see mothers being treated unequally and oppressed and not having their needs taken care of, it doesn't matter that I'm not a mother, because I still want to call it out, you know? Anyway, back to the book, and Lily is all conflicted about Atlas, and she says, I haven't felt this conflicted in so long. See, really doing the telling and not showing. Typical Colleen Hoover. Part of me wants to call Alyssa and tell her about seeing Atlas, but I can't. She knows how Ryle still feels about me. She knows how he'd feel if I brought Atlas into the picture. So Alyssa was Lily's best friend in the last book, and she's also Ryle's sister. And this is one of the things that I find hardest to get my head around in these books. Alyssa is still best friends with Lily, and also still really close with Ryle, and like having him around to dinner every week and hanging out. And she knows what he did to Lily. She knows he was repeatedly beating her up and hitting her and throwing her downstairs and being an abusive piece of crap. I don't care that he's her brother. If I found out my brother was treating his wife this way, I'd be like, screw you, I'm on Rachel's side. Do you know what I mean? Lily goes on to complain some more about what being a parent is like, with lines like, I don't get a lot of alone time now I have Emerson, so I occasionally steal an hour here and there during the work week when I have someone to back up my absence at the shop. Sometimes I like to sit in my thoughts, and it's impossible to do that in the presence of a child, because even when she's asleep, I'm in mum mode. And with the constant flow of traffic at work, it's rare I can find a stretch of peace without being interrupted. Again, she's not selling parenting here to me. It sounds like hell. But again, we also have to point out, well, of course she's always in mum mode, because when she's not parenting her child, she's having to parent the father of her child, right? Constantly holding his hand. So Lily decides with her hour off to drive to the side of some road somewhere and write a letter to Ellen. This was the gimmick in the first book in the series, because every Colleen Hoover book has one. Lily, as a teenager, would write in her diary as letters to Ellen, as in the talk show host and comedian Ellen. Now adult Lily is doing the same thing, but she only does it once in this book, so it's just forgotten about. I'm not sure if Ellen had been, like, cancelled and called out by the time this book was written, but I'd be interested to know. I could have probably Googled it, but I don't care that much about this book, and I have more important things to talk about. The letter is basically just an info dump of everything that happened in the last book so we can get caught up, I guess. She says things like, I still have to interact with Ryle. He still possesses all the good qualities I fell in love with. Like what? Where were these good qualities? And now that I'm no longer in a relationship with him, it's rare I see that negative side that ultimately ended our marriage. I think it has to do with the fact that he's on his best behaviour. He had to be agreeable and not put up too much of a fight because he knew I could have reported him for all the incidents of domestic violence I experienced at his hands. He could have lost a lot more than his wife, so when it came to the custody agreement, things were more amiable than I expected them to be. Honestly, just go report him to the police. I don't care. He's an abuser. I understand that in the real world there are lots of reasons why victims and survivors don't go to the police, and I'm never going to shame anyone for not doing that. I will always advocate for real life victims, and I've been in that situation myself, and I was the one who chose not to press charges because it is difficult going through that and talking about it and reliving it all over and over again. But this isn't the real world. This is fiction, and I don't give a damn about Lily trying to protect him and his feelings. He's a monster. report him. I guess you could say we came to a compromise, even though there isn't an agreement in the world that would make me feel comfortable with sending my daughter off to someone I know possesses a temper. But all I can do is choose the lesser of two evils when it comes to custody and hope that Emmy never sees that side of him. Seriously, you really want to take that risk? You really think it's worth it? It's been working out okay so far, if you don't count the occasional gaslighting and unwanted flirtation from him. So like I say, this sets up what should be the conflict in this book, but we never actually get any actual conflict. It doesn't go anywhere. So Lily's scared to get involved with Atlas because it might make abusive Ryle angry. That's a conflict between them. And with Lily and Atlas is waiting for Lily to text first, and Lily is waiting for Atlas to text first, and that's apparently the conflict between them. I don't care. Grow up and text the person you're interested in. It's just that easy. The problem is, other than this, which gets resolved in a couple of chapters, there's not actually any conflict between Lily and Ryle. It's just they like each other, they get together, done. That's it. With Lily and Atlas, they're all the same men, aren't they? With Lily and Atlas, there's no conflict. They get together and it's done. With Lily and Ryle, she's always talking about there could be conflict. There could be conflict. He might do this, he might... Nothing happens. He doesn't do anything. There's not actually any conflict in this whole book. Chapter 3, and sadly we're back to Atlas and his perspective. He tries to get dating advice from a 12-year-old boy who I didn't even realise was 12 until halfway through the first sentence. Not because he sounds super mature, but because, like all Colleen Hoovers, he sounds like a child. Even the adult men in this sound like children, so how am I supposed to differentiate between a 36-year-old man and a 12-year-old boy when they both sound the same? Apparently it's totally okay and appropriate to trauma dump on a 12-year-old boy because Theo told me he wanted to be a therapist when he grows up, so I let him practice on me. At first, the talks we would have were intended for his benefit, but lately I feel like I'm the one benefiting. Can we not? Just get a real therapist, mate. Don't cross these boundaries with a child. You're an adult man talking about your relationship and getting dating advice from a child. Who do you think you are? Colleen Ballinger? Atlas finally decides he's going to be the one to text Lily and says, "It was good seeing you today." And she says, "You too." And then the chapter ends. That's it. That was a whole chapter. In Lily's chapter, she talks about how Ryle has a key to her home in case of emergencies. And I know this man is the father of your child, but he's also a violent abuser. So maybe don't let him have free access to your home. Just saying. Take the key off him, please. I said at this point in my original notes, this is likely going to come back to bite her in the bottom later, because what I thought was going to happen was Ryle was going to come round, use his key, catch Lily and Atlas together, there was going to be a big fight, a big conflict, it was, all going to come to head, but no, of course that doesn't happen, that would be too interesting. Instead, she just asks him for the key back and then he gives it back. But at least she does acknowledge that he has been overstepping his boundaries already. So yeah, I keep meaning to ask him for it back. He sometimes uses it on the rare occasions when he has late surgery and has extra time to spend with Emmy in the mornings after I head to work. That's why I haven't asked for it back. But lately he's been using the key to bring Emmy home. He texted me just before I closed the shop earlier and told me Emmy was tired, so he was taking her to my place to put her to bed. The frequency he's been using the key lately is making me wonder if Emmy is the only one he's trying to spend more time with. My front door is unlocked when I finally make it to my apartment. Ryle is in the kitchen. This isn't okay. I would not want to come home from work and find my abuser in my kitchen. That would terrify me. I would call the police. Just saying. I don't like this. He's been making himself more and more comfortable here, but I'm emotionally drained from the day already, so I shake my head and decide to confront the issue at a different time. Honestly, this is why cutting off abusers is, in my opinion, the only way to go, because if you give them even a little inch, they'll take a mile. You can't compromise with a violent abuser like Ryle. And I know he's the father of her kid, but this is why you get the police involved. And if he has to see his kid, it should be with supervision from a social worker. And you shouldn't even have to see him, you know? Lily is meanwhile still having a completely normal response to her abuser. She flinches every time he comes near her. This is accurate. I do like to see it being portrayed like this. However, I could do without the constant over-explaining from Colleen, if I'm being honest. He reaches forward and uses his thumb to wipe something off my cheek. I flinch a little, but he doesn't notice. Or maybe he pretends not to. I'm not sure if he realises the reaction I have anytime his hands come near me is a negative one. Knowing Ryle, he probably thinks I flinched because I felt a spark. This over-explaining is a constant Colleen thing. She does it constantly. So Lily gets a text from her mum, and she's like, "Oh, it's from no one, it's from no one." I take a drink, he's still staring. Do you have to be doing that right now? They're just hammering like crazy upstairs, and I have no idea why. They're changing the carpet. Oh, for God's sake, this is going to be going on for hours. I've already delayed filming this by like 3 hours because they were doing it earlier and they're still going on. I've just realised what it is. Oh, I hate this. Sorry, guys. We'll work with this how we can. I have just recently ordered a new microphone. It should be here in a couple of days. So hopefully it's a condenser mic. I'm terrible with audio. I always have been since I first started my channel. I don't really know what I'm doing. But I've done some Googling. I've tried to understand it. I've bought what I can within my small budget. And I've bought a condenser mic and a little audio interface. So hopefully that's going to make the sound quality of my videos better. But I have no idea. I'm sorry. I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, right. Lily gets a text from her mum. She's like, it's no one, blah, blah, blah. I take a drink. He's still staring. I have no idea how well Ryle can read me, but it looks like he knows I'm lying. He spins his fork in his noodles and looks down at his plate with a hardened jaw. Are you seeing someone? There's an edge to his voice now. Not that that's any of your business, but no, not saying it is my business. Just having a casual conversation. I don't respond to that because it's a lie. Any recently divorced husband asking his ex-wife if she's seeing someone is making anything but casual conversation. Like, so much of this is redundant. It's like she was trying to meet a word count, you know? How about you show us this stuff instead of just telling us? Like, imagine if the scene was written like this instead. Ryle's eyes narrowed. Are you seeing someone? Not that it's any of your business, but no. He quickly raised and dropped his eyebrows. Not saying it is, just... He shrugged awkwardly. It shows us all that same stuff, but it's half the length, and it's not over-explaining like we're all children. Another example here. So Lily brings up setting boundaries between them and she asks for her keys back. So this is what I mean. The potential conflict that was set up at the start of the chapter is just resolved by the end of the chapter. It doesn't actually go anywhere. It's not interesting. So she asks for her keys back and we get this. Ryle's expression is tight. He's upset with me. I knew he would be, but he's making this into more than what it is. It has nothing to do with how much I want him to see Emmy. I just don't want him having easy access to my apartment. I moved out and divorced him for a reason. A good editor would simply cut this down to, Ryle's expression was tight. None of the rest is necessary because it's all told to us and implied to us and shown to us in that one little thing there. We know he's upset with you. That's what the expression shows. Everything else is just a repeat of things she's already said in the rest of the chapter. It's unnecessary. Are we sure Colleen Hoover isn't being paid by the word? Not only does this tendency to over-explain patronise the reader by assuming they can't figure out what's going on for themselves, but it also makes the book so much longer and more boring than it has to be, and it immediately undermines any tension that might have been created otherwise. It's just gone. Ryle's expression gets tight. What does this mean? Is he going to react violently? Is he going to control his temper? Is he going to say something, do something? We don't know. Like, that's creating tension. That's creating, what's going to happen? You want to find out. But Ryle's expression tightens. This means this and it doesn't mean this. It means this. No tension. Tension is gone. There is none. One thing I'm glad about is that Ryle's behaviour in this book is not being romanticised or sexualised. His abusive behaviour isn't being romanticised, which is nice to see. However, his behaviour, being grumpy, storming out, giving her ultimatums, being demanding, controlling, possessive. He's just like every other Colleen Hoover male protagonist, isn't he? Except this time it's being labelled as abuse. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. It's the worst. I hate it. In the next chapter, Atlas's other restaurant has been broken into and targeted with "F.U. Atlas" graffiti. So clearly it's personal, but I find myself unable to care because I don't give a damn about Atlas. There was CCTV. Turns out a mysterious teenager slept on the back step for 2 hours before, graffitiing, so that's fun. That's the whole chapter. Oh no, it's not the whole chapter. We have to talk about stuff. Damn it. Oh. Okay. It was definitely targeted, Brad says. Who's Brad? Brad's another generic man. We have Darren and Brad. They could be the same character. I don't know why they're not. Neither of them have personalities. They're just there when Atlas needs someone to talk at. It was definitely targeted, Brad said, staring at the graffiti. Whoever vandalised Bibbs 2 nights ago decided to hit up my newest restaurant last night. Corrigan's has 2 damaged windows and there's another message spray painted across the back door. F.U. Atlas. They added an S and underlined the ASS in my name. I catch myself wanting to laugh at the cleverness, but my mood isn't making space for humour this morning. Is the clever in the room with us right now? Atlas then gets a mysterious phone call from a woman he doesn't recognise, and it turns out it's his mum. Once again, I do not care. I am not invested in Atlas as a character. He's boring, he's creepy, he enjoys playing the White Knight, and he has no real or interesting personality traits. His character doesn't develop or grow or change. There is just nothing interesting about him. I immediately pull the phone away from my ear and look at the number again. This has to be some sort of prank. How would my mother get my phone number? Why would she want it? It's been years since she made it clear she never wanted to see me again. I say nothing. I have nothing to say. I stretch my spine and lean forward, waiting for her to spit out the reason she finally put forth the effort to contact me. He asks if she's dying. She says no. He asks what she wants. She doesn't reply. More repetition, but like the bad kind, not the meaningful kind. Every ounce of anxiety she used to fill me with returns in these few seconds on the phone with her. I immediately end the call. I have nothing to say to her. I block her number, regretful that I gave her as long as I did to speak. I should have ended the call as soon as she told me who she was. End of chapter. On to chapter 6, and Lily is talking about planning her daughter Emmy's first birthday party. And this is an odd thing for me of all people to notice. But we're 6 chapters into this book so far, and we've heard a lot about Emmy, but we've not actually seen her. She's not been in any scenes, and we know nothing about her. She's a baby, but she's always off in the background, right? So she's in another room, she's with another person, she's not actually in the scene itself. And like I say, throughout this whole book we find out nothing about her at all, and this kid's like nearly 1 year old. By that point they're starting to show some personality, right? But we've not seen her interact with Lily or Ryle or actually anyone at all. Like, no one's interacted with her. We don't know if she has hair, if she's big or small for her age. We don't know what eye colour she has. We don't know if she likes dogs or music or flowers or building things or painting, or I don't know what else babies like, but she has no personality. You could at least tell us something so we have an actual human being to care about and not just this grey baby-shaped faceless blob that we're supposed to care about because it's a baby. I don't care about generic baby. If you want me to care about this character, give her a personality. Since Lily has not texted Ryle again since the "you too" text, he decides to turn up unannounced at her flower shop and bring her lunch. I kind of wish someone would bring me lunch, to be honest. Kind of hungry. Because Lily hasn't texted him back and it's been like a whole 12 hours. Terrible. He's like, "Why are you avoiding me?" Because he's a child. I should laugh at that or smile, but my reaction doesn't fit the conversation. I set the ball aside. When I look at him again, he can see the war in my expression. God's sake. He counters with a reassuring look. Not much is said between us, but the non-verbal cues we're trading are saying enough. My eyes are apologizing for my silence over the last 24 hours. He's silently telling me it's okay, and we're both wondering what comes next. Interesting how Colleen mentions non-verbal cues, but she doesn't know how to write any, does she? While Atlas is there, before they can even say anything to each other, Ryle shows up to pick up some keys from his sister, who also works with Lily. So they decide to just hide Atlas in a closet. These are grown adults, mothers to children, hiding another adult in a closet to appease an abuser. And it's just played for laughs and humor. I can't at these books. So Ryle shows up and then just leaves. There's no drama, no tension, there's no risk of him finding Atlas. None of this had to happen because nothing happens. Lily goes to let Ryle out of the closet, words I cannot believe I'm saying, but instead he pulls her into the closet, and this is meant to be a sexy moment. Now we're both in the closet. The dark closet. But not so dark, I can't see the flicker in his eyes that indicates he's holding back a smile. Maybe he doesn't absolutely hate me for this. He releases my hand, but it's so cramped in here for the two of us. Parts of him are grazing parts of me. My stomach knots, so I press my hand into the shelf behind me in an attempt to not press into him. But it feels like he's draped over me like a warm blanket. He's so close I can smell his shampoo. I very calmly try to breathe through my nerves. Atlas dips his head ever so slightly. He's her father. He's not your husband. So you shouldn't allow your concern for his feelings to persuade you to give up what could be the second best thing to ever happen to you. He says that with such conviction my heart feels like it's tumbling down my ribcage like a Plinko chip. The second best thing to ever happen to me? I wish his confidence in us were contagious. What's the first best thing to ever happen to me? He looks at me pointedly. Emerson. Your baby, love, what do you think he means? Hearing him call my daughter the best thing to ever happen to me makes me damn near melt. I hug myself and hold back my smile. You're gonna make this difficult for me, hmm? Honestly, like, this is what I mean about men being praised for doing the bare minimum. I would be more concerned if he didn't think that having your kid was the best thing to ever happen to you. Like, if he was like, no, us being together, way better for you than having your kid. Yeah, that would be a concern. But here he's doing the bare minimum and just acknowledging that her child is important in her life. And he's being praised for it like he's doing something extraordinary. Lily says that life is complicated, but Atlas can call her sometime, and then the chapter just ends. In chapter 7, Atlas is trying to give dating advice to the 12-year-old kid Theo because it turns out he likes a boy in his class. Ooh. I think, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first and maybe only gay character in any Colleen Hoover book, and it's a 12-year-old boy that's kind of like played for laughs. I don't know how I feel about it. Atlas thinks stuff like, Theo doesn't immediately answer. I'm not sure if I'm the first person he's admitted this part of himself to, so I want to make sure to treat that with the care it deserves. I want him to know he has an ally in me, but I also hope he's aware he has an ally in his father too, which on the surface should be good. It's supportive, it's not homophobic, again the bar is on the floor, it's saying all the right stuff, but it's just also a bit patronising, isn't it? Like, I don't know. It feels like the focus is more on showing what a good guy Atlas is than actually having any queer representation, you know? Anyway, that's where the chapter ends. It's all very surface level. These chapters are literally like 2 to 3 pages long. There's nothing to them. Chapter 8, Lily again. It's almost 9:30 at night and I have no missed calls. Emerson's been asleep for an hour and a half, but she's usually awake by 6 in the morning. I go to bed around 10 because if I don't get at least 8 hours of sleep, I function at the capacity of a zombie. But if Atlas doesn't call before 10, I'm not sure I'll be able to sleep at all. I'll wonder if I should have apologised 70 more times for hiding him in a closet today. She also acknowledges that we probably have 2 completely different definitions for what morning and night even mean. He's a successful chef who gets home to unwind after midnight, and I'm in my pyjamas by 7 in the evening. And yeah, here's the thing, everyone wants us to root for Lily and Atlas to be a couple and get together, but let's be real. They have very different lives and very different schedules and very different priorities. In the real world, they just wouldn't work as a couple, would they? And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you can have great chemistry with someone, click with them, really care about them, but if your lives just aren't lined up, then it's not going to work. And it's okay to say, yeah, you know what? Let's move on. It's for the best. Atlas decides to video call her, and he's like, I don't want to talk about me. Let's talk about you. But you know conversation goes 2 ways, right, mate? Like, you say something, she says something, you share a story, she shares a story, you ask a question, she asks a question. It's fun, it's a back and forth. You share and learn about each other. You can't just be like, I only want to hear about you. And not expect it to be weirded out. Like, what are you hiding? Then Lily says about her totally perfect dream florist business that we've heard she's wanted her whole life from being a kid. She says, I don't know, I think I'm tired of it. Or tired in general. It's a lot. And it's tedious work for not very much financial return. I mean, I'm proud that it's been successful and that I did it, but sometimes I daydream about working in a factory assembly line. So you're sick of a tedious job for little pay, and therefore you dream of doing a more tedious job for even less pay. Colleen Hoover, tell me you've never worked a monotonous minimum wage job in your life. You are so out of touch with the real world. I can't. Atlas then asks Lily to read some of her teenage journals to him over the phone so he can find out what she really thought of him back then. And Lily gets all embarrassed. She's like, I cover my face with my hand. No, don't beg. I'll give in to those blue puppy dog eyes if he doesn't stop looking at me like he is. He can see he's wearing me down. Lily, I have ached since I was a teenager to know what you thought of me. 1 paragraph. Just give me that much. How is this woman a best-selling romance author? Where is the romance? She then reads out this passage about her crying and him hugging her and hoping that he'd seen her walking around her bedroom half naked. And at this point in my notes, I was like, I'm 90% certain this is just copied from the first book. So I looked back at the first book and it is. And Colleen does this a lot. There's these whole pages and pages in this second book that are just copied verbatim from the first book and just re-put in. It's lazy, it's page filler, and I hate it. If you're gonna have Atlas reading back through these old journals and learning about what Lily thought of him, reading stuff from from her childhood, is his late teenage years, reading about that now with an adult perspective, you could at least make those passages something that's relevant to the plot now. Does that make sense? Like something that's going to inform what he does today. Colleen just needed to fill pages and she didn't want to write anything new, and it's really, really lazy. She got paid to be this lazy, and I'm jealous. Atlas clears his throat, leaning forward. A subtle smile materializes. Back to your journal, he says. I wondered if you knew I could see into your bedroom window back then, because after that night you left the light on a hell of a lot. I laughed, glad he's lightening the mood. You didn't have a television. I wanted to give you something to watch. He groans. Lily, you have to let me read the rest. No, you locked me in a closet today. Letting me read your journals would be a good way to apologise for that. I'm sorry, but I do not like Atlas. Where's the appeal? He's not a nice guy. At best, he's pushy and immature and manages to, some of the time, do the bare minimum of being a decent man. It's nothing special, is it? And here's another thing that I think is worth discussing, and bear with me here, but like, in the first book, Ryle invaded her privacy by reading all of her journals without her consent. Like, he went through her closets and read them all, and it was a big invasion of privacy, and obviously a lot of upset there. In this book, Atlas reads all her journals because he pressures her into sharing them with him. It feels a bit like that trope of like, well, if your ex did it, then I need to do it too, which I know stems from insecurity, but it's just never healthy. And what this reminded me of was back when I reviewed the Harrow Fair books, and I feel like I've spoken about them quite a bit recently, there's this absolutely horrifying scene where, so the main character, Cora, is traumatized because she was anally raped by her ex-boyfriend, and trauma, obviously. And then the main love interest, Simon, who is an abusive piece of crap in himself. He's abusive, he's violent, he's a murderer, he's a rapist. He decides he's jealous of her ex having had anal sex with her. It wasn't sex, it was rape. And so we get a scene where he physically ties her up and tells her that he doesn't want her ex to have had a piece of her that he can't have. So then he anally rapes her too, despite her crying and begging him to stop. Apparently it's all okay, and she's healed because during the rape she orgasms, which means she must have wanted it all along, right? And that's why their relationship is true love, and this wasn't real rape like it was with her ex. No, it's still a portrayal of rape. It's disgusting. It's dangerous. I hate those books. This feels like a less extreme version of that, in that Ryle took this piece of her by reading her journals without her consent. So now Atlas is going to pressure her and coerce her into also giving her that part of him so he can read her journals too. Even though she's clearly feeling humiliated and embarrassed and she doesn't like it, he's pressuring her until she says yes, which still isn't a real yes because consent doesn't work that way. But apparently it's okay that he's doing it because he's a nice guy, a hot guy. What they have is true love, so it's okay that he coerced her, right? Please, can all romance authors have to take a course on what consent is before they're allowed to write this stuff? Please. They agree to go out on a date next weekend, and that's the end of the chapter. In Atlas's chapter, it's just a lot of nothing. Atlas complains that he doesn't have social media, so he can't stalk Lily properly because she sets all of hers to private. They recap stuff that happened in the last book when Atlas and Ryle had a public fist fight. Lily phones him and they talk about a whole lot of nothing, literally nothing. It's just ha ha ha, I'd kill to watch you make TikTok videos. No. Can you believe people pay to read this nonsense? Then there is the worst moment in this book yet, where Lily is breastfeeding her baby, which is fine, normal, that's what people do, right? And she's doing it while she's on the phone with Atlas, and they're video chatting, right? But she's obviously got the phone here, the baby's feeding down here, and as she's moving, she accidentally drops the phone, and Atlas physically sees her breastfeeding, and his response is ooh, breast. Ooh, I should be thanking you for that view. Can we please not sexualize a person feeding their child? Can we not? Once the camera is firmly back on Lily's face, he continues to be creepy by obviously screenshotting the call, again, while she's breastfeeding, but not quite the point here. So he can show the 12-year-old kid Theo what she looks like and like brag about how hot she is to this 12-year-old boy. I'd like to say this isn't normal behavior for adult men, surely, but sadly, based on all the YouTubers that have been being exposed recently, maybe this is normal for adult men, and it shouldn't be. It's Lily's chapter, and conveniently, because the plot calls for it, Lily's mum is temporarily ill and can't babysit on the night of Lily and Atlas's date. So Lily has to take Emerson to Alyssa to babysit, which is, remember, Ryle's sister. And in case you'd forgotten, because we all had, Alyssa and Ryle live in the same building as each other. So it takes Colleen Hoover a whole page to share this bit of information. I don't get how someone can write so much and say so little. Lily drops off the kid, and that's the whole chapter. Literally nothing happened. Why was this even included? It could have been told to us through a single line of dialogue in the next chapter, with Atlas going, "Oh, where's Emmy tonight? Oh, Mum got sick, so I dropped off with Alyssa." That's all you needed. 2 lines, and it took Colleen like 4 pages. We didn't need 4 pages of Alyssa sniffing babies, or to be reminded that Alyssa's kid and Lily's kid were only 6 months apart, or read about Riley in the playpen, or have Alyssa call Atlas a Greek god, or have Alyssa's husband / Ryle's best friend pretend he didn't know about the date and blah blah blah. We didn't need any of that because none of it matters. None of it has any impact on anything. It's just filler. If you're gonna show this stuff and have Marshall, the husband / best friend, come in, the one thing I would like addressed is, again, why is he still friends with Ryle? He knows that he's a violent, abusive piece of crap who beats women. Why is he still friends with him? Again, if I found out that a friend of mine had beaten their partner, wouldn't be friends with them anymore. This isn't just like a, oh, you were ignorant once and we're going to teach you how to be better type thing. This is a, you beat up your partner, get out of my life type thing, you know? In Atlas's chapter, he spends 3 pages waiting to pick Lily up for their date, and then she gives him an old journal of hers so he can read, and this is when he thinks, "I hate that I'm driving because I want to look at her while I respond. I've never seen her look this womanly." Is that a compliment? I don't even know. I probably shouldn't say it out loud in case it isn't, but when Lily and I fell in love, neither of us were what we would now consider adults. But tonight's different. We're grown-ups with careers, which is how all adults talk, isn't it? And she's a mother and a boss and independent. It's sexy as hell. Also, sorry, but you were an adult. You were 18, you were nearly 19, you were living independently even though you were homeless. You were living independently and you were planning on this career in the army and you had all this stuff going on. She was a barely 15-year-old child. Of course she looked like a child in her eyes because the person you were sleeping with was a child. I hate Colleen Hoover. I absolutely hate her. Okay, so the next bit. You know how Colleen Hoover likes to make most female characters, or at least the good ones, basically a self-insert of her, right? Bear that in mind when we read this passage. Kind of hilarious. What do you enjoy most about your job? She's full of questions tonight. I give her a sidelong glance and smile. Reading the reviews. She makes a noise like she's shocked. I'm sorry? She says, did you say reviews? You read your restaurant reviews? Every single one. What? Oh my god, you must not have a single insecurity. I make Serena run all our social media so I can avoid reviews. Your reviews are great. She practically turns her entire body towards me in the seat. You read my reviews? I read reviews for anyone I know who owns a business. Is that weird? It's not weird. I flip on my blinker. I like reading reviews. I feel like business reviews are a reflection of the owner, and I want to know what people think of my restaurant. The constructive criticism helps. I haven't had the kitchen experience a lot of chefs have, and critics are some of your best teachers. What do you get out of reading reviews about other people's businesses? Nothing really, I just find it entertaining. Do I have any bad ones? Lily looks away from me, half turning, so she's facing forward again. Never mind, don't answer that. I'm just going to pretend they're all good and that everyone loves my flowers. Everyone does love your flowers. Not going to comment. Not going to comment. But once again, it adds nothing to the book. So next up, Lily brings up Atlas's past relationships, and I don't know if you guys have seen my latest Zodiac Academy video, but in that I brought up this point from this feministing article about why in so many romance books, neither of the main love interests ever seem to have been allowed to have had meaningful relationships or fulfilling sex outside of each other. And to quote that article again, the author said, and it'll be linked in full in the video description if you want to read it, Why wasn't anyone allowed to have had good, meaningful sex in the past? Occasionally the hero might have an ex-wife with whom he slept, but no one arouses him like the intrepid heroine. And this is exactly what we get in this scene here. Lily had a serious relationship with Ryle, but of course he was abusive and she's been traumatized, so that doesn't really count. Atlas, on the other hand, how many serious relationships have you had? She's going there, okay. Define serious. I don't know, more than 2 months? 1, I say. How long were you together? A little more than a year. I met her while I was in the military. Why did you break up? We moved in together. That's why you broke up? The dialogue is so bad. I think living together escalated the realization that we were incompatible, or maybe we were just at different points in our lives. I was focused on my career, and her focus was on which outfits to wear to the clubs. I was too tired to go with her. When I got out of the military and moved back to Boston, she stayed behind and moved into a loft with 2 of her friends. Lily laughs. I cannot picture you in a club. Yeah, that's why I'm single, I guess. So he's that trope of he had a serious relationship, but of course it wasn't fulfilling because the woman was so shallow and so silly and so unlike Lily, who's a real woman and not like the other girls. People can have had more than one meaningful relationship in their lives, and that is absolutely okay. If you would like to read a romance book that portrays a healthy relationship like that, where, you know, it acknowledges that they've had other relationships, there's more than one right person for someone, then I would probably recommend... There we go, they're both together. I would recommend Taylor Jenkins Reid's Maybe in Another Life and One True Loves. One True Loves in particular does that job really, really well. Now, I know some people don't like Taylor as a person. I can't quite understand why. It's a bit all over the place. There's nothing really definitive that I found online for why people don't like her. One of the things I saw was that people didn't like that she was white and wrote a Latino protagonist in her Carrie Soto book, but I didn't like that book anyway, so I didn't finish it, and that issue isn't really relevant in this book because I don't think that ethnicities of any of these characters are ever mentioned. They could just be anyone. And I genuinely believe that One True Loves, regardless of what you think of the author as a person, to just completely separate the art and the material, it does a really good job of showing how one person can have equally as important, wonderful and loving relationships at different points in their life. And neither one of those relationships is necessarily better than the other or more important than the other, or one's their true love and one isn't. It shows that it just depends on where you are in your life. Some people might be more suited at different points than others. And you can still be fulfilled, you can still be in love, you can still have these deep, beautiful, meaningful relationships. And even when they end, they don't lose their meaning. This book does a really, really good job of showing that. And I think it's commendable because not many books do. Maybe in Another Life is more of like a sliding doors type thing, where basically a woman is at a crossroads and something can happen or not happen. She makes a decision and life could go in 2 ways, and we follow like what would happen if she took this path and what would happen if she took this path. And ultimately she ends up in wonderful, fulfilling relationships and doing very different things in each of the situations, but both relationships are right for her in that time period, you know? So it shows, again, there's no just one true love for everyone. Everyone can have these wonderful, deep relationships dependent on life. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like, again, regardless of what you think of the author as a person, we can acknowledge that these books do a really good job of showing that point, you know? And it's something that I don't see a lot in romance books. A lot of romance books have this focus on your one true love, your one true person that you're meant to be with. And I just, personally, I don't like that because I don't think it's true to real life. And that's not a fantasy I've ever really had. I like the idea of being with the right person in the right moment. And if it ends, it ends. You'll go out and find someone else equally as amazing and wonderful and right for you at the time. And that's what I think love is, knowing that there are other options out there and there are other people you could be with, but you're choosing this person and you're loving this person with your whole heart. And it doesn't matter if you could be with X, Y, or Z because you're choosing them and they're choosing you. And that's what makes it such a beautiful love story in real life, you know? And that's what I enjoy reading about in books. So, I don't know, I'm rambling. Anyway, so while they're driving to this fancy restaurant for a date, Atlas has to make some work calls because the freezer's broken, and so he's on the phone, he's talky, and when he looks round, Lily has fallen asleep in the car. And I glance over at her and find her asleep, her head limp against her shoulder. I hear a dainty snore coming from her. Lies! dirty, filthy lies. There are no dainty snores, especially when you're sleeping awkwardly in a car. I don't believe it. I will not suspend my disbelief for this. Her snore is as endearing as she is. It's delicate, almost too light to hear. I take a quick video I can use to tease her with later, and then I reach into the back seat and grab her journal. I know she said not to read it in front of her, but technically I'm not. She's asleep. I open to the first page and begin reading. Well, if it's only technically betrayal, then I guess it's okay, right? If you're only technically not respecting her wishes, I guess we should be fine with it. Stop it. They pull up to the restaurant at exactly the time they were meant to get there, at the start of their reservation, and he decides to just not wake her up and cancel the reservation. And he's like acting like he's doing this great thing for the restaurant. Oh, they might as well have the table back and not wait for us and fill it with someone else. But you're cancelling at the time it was booked for. That table's already empty. You've screwed them over already by cancelling last minute. Then again, he just sits there and reads the journals, and it's just pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of stuff copied from the last book. It is lazy page filler. After he's done reading, Atlas is like, well, I'll just write a notes app story of my life as a teenager, but not let Lily read it until it's more convenient for the plot. But then she wakes up an hour later, and he's like, oh, never mind, you can read it now. He tells her that, after everything I've just read, not sure anything could top this date. She wasn't even there. She was asleep through it. He goes on to say, reading her description of our first kiss brought back every feeling she pulled out of me that night. She could sleep the entire way back home, and I'd still think it was the best date I've ever been on. I'm gonna be honest with you now, if you as like a 28-year-old man or whatever he is, if you prefer thinking about what kissing a 15-year-old was like and reading about that 15-year-old's experiences over being with that woman as an adult, that's waving a couple of red flags for me, I'll be honest. And if someone said to me, oh, this is the best date I've ever been on, and I just slept through it the whole time, I'd be like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Why do you prefer my unconscious body over me being here? In Lily's chapter, he just gives her the notes app thing to read because, I guess half an hour was long enough to wait. This bit confuses me, right? As soon as I see the two words at the top of the page, I drop the phone, pressing it face down onto my thigh. Atlas. Lily. I can feel my embarrassment being swallowed up by a warm wave of anticipation falling over me. You wrote me a Dear Lily letter? He nods slowly. You were asleep for quite a while. When he glances at me, his smile falters like he's worried about whatever it is he wrote. He faces forward again, and I can see the roll in his throat. Now I'm confused by this and why she finds it romantic, because a Dear John letter, you know what that is, right, Colleen? Dear John letters were traditionally sent by women to soldiers when they were breaking up with them. Dear John letters are breakup letters. Is a Dear Lily letter meant to be a reference to a Dear John letter? Because if so, I'd be insulted. Either Colleen Hoover doesn't know what a Dear John letter is, or she... I don't know, I have no other explanation. I don't get it. This letter that he's written her just in his, notes app on his iPhone, it just repeats a whole bunch of stuff we've already heard, blah, 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 it's fine. And then Atlas tells a bit more about his mum, and a lot of it is stuff we already know from the rest of the book, but that Lily doesn't. And it's things like, my core memories were stretches of time spent alone or just trying to stay out of her way. She was quick to anger and quick to respond. For the first 10 or so years of my life, she was stronger and faster than me, so I spent the better part of a decade hiding from her hand, from her cigarettes, from the lash of her tongue. Now, if you remember from the first book, Lily was also abused by her dad when she was younger, so clearly Colleen thinks that it's romantic to have two people bond over unresolved childhood trauma instead of just going to therapy. At 17 years old, almost 18, Atlas was kicked out of the home by his mum's third husband, and when he returns 3 months later, the house is just entirely falling apart. The yard hadn't been mowed since the last time I'd done it before being kicked out. All the window screens were missing. I don't know what a window screen is. Like on a car? I don't know. And there was a gaping hole where the doorknob used to be. By the looks of the place, you'd think I'd been gone for years. It felt weird knocking on the door of a house I'd lived in for years, but on the off chance that Tim wasn't home, I wasn't about to open the door without permission. I'd had a house key still, but Tim had made it very clear that he'd turn me in for trespassing if I ever tried to use it. I couldn't have even used it if I wanted to, there was no doorknob. So this could be interesting if it wasn't also poorly written. I do think it's important to show accurate portrayals of child abuse and difficult, uncomfortable, troubling home situations in books and media in general, because it helps people relate, it helps people feel less alone, it helps people understand what others have gone through. I think it's really important. And one of the people I think who has always done that really, really well, especially for kids, is Jacqueline Wilson. So like I say, she writes for kids, but she's an absolute legend because she's always tackled these big topics like child abuse, eating disorders, even a baby being abandoned at birth. She tackles it with care and compassion, and she's incredible. So I am going to draw some comparisons to her in a second, if that's okay. But we'll stick with this Colleen Hoover scene for now. So Atlas goes on to say, if I still lived there, the curtains would have been open. The kitchen counters wouldn't have been covered with dirty dishes. There wouldn't have been a missing doorknob or an unkempt yard or days worth of soggy newspapers piling up. I realised in that moment that I was the one who'd been keeping that house together all the years I was growing up. I saw a doorknob kit on the kitchen table, so I picked it up and inspected it. The receipt was beneath it. I looked at the date on the receipt, and it was purchased over 2 weeks prior. The doorknob was the right fit for the front door. I don't know why Tim hadn't installed it for 2 weeks, so I found the tools in a kitchen drawer and opened the package. It was several minutes before my mother came out of her room, but by the time she did, I'd already installed the new doorknob in place of the front door. She asked what I was doing, so I twisted the knob and opened the door a little to show her it worked. I'll never forget her reaction. She sighed and said, "Why'd you do crap like this? It's like you want him to hate you." She snatched the screwdriver out of my hand and said, "Maybe you should go before he realizes you were here." "I'm not trying to upset Tim," I said. "I fixed your doorknob. I was just trying to help." I don't think I've ever read the word doorknob so many times in such a short space. I attempted to plead with her, but she quickly resorted to the person I was used to. She hurled the screwdriver at me, and it was so sudden and unexpected because we weren't even arguing at that point. I wasn't able to duck in time, and it hit me right above my left eye in the centre of my eyebrow. I rubbed my fingers across the cut, and they came away smeared with blood. All I did was ask to move home. I didn't disrespect her. I didn't curse at her. I simply showed up to fix her front door and tried to reason with her, and I ended up with a bloody gash. And see, this is what I mean. It should be terrible. It should be emotive. It should be sad. But Colleen's writing is just so bad that it doesn't have that emotional impact that good writing does, and that this topic actually deserves. Compare that to when someone like Jacqueline Wilson writes about abuse, and her writing is somewhat simplistic because she's often, like 95% of the time, writing from the perspective of a literal child for other children. So she's writing in a way that kids will understand and relate to. She wants kids to be able to identify with these characters because maybe they've been through the same thing and they're being shown that they're not alone. Maybe it's just allowing them to understand and have sympathy for other kids who are in their class who might be going through the same stuff. Jacqueline's writing is simple, but it's way more emotive than Colleen's will ever be. And I also find that often when you are reading from the perspective of these kids who maybe they don't have the vocabulary to explain what's actually happening, they don't have the emotional maturity to fully understand what's happening to them, they just know that this is wrong and they're scared. There's something about reading an account like that, and even rereading it as an adult, that it hits you so hard and it's almost more emotional and it really, really gets to you. But in comparison, when you have a character like Atlas, who's an adult, I think he's maybe like 28 or 29 or something here, it doesn't feel like this is his inner child speaking. It just feels like poor writing, and it's not as emotive as it needs to be, you know? So think of those Colleen Hoover passages and compare them to these books. Again, literally written for children from the perspective of children from Jacqueline Wilson. So this is an extract from a book called The Worry Website, in which these 9 to 10-year-old kids have this anonymous class website run by their teacher where they can submit anonymous worries and get help from their teacher and other kids in their class. And one of the kids, Lisa, is too scared to even share her worry on the site, but her narration tells us things like, "One day after I'd been to Claire's house, I came home and my mum was crying. She said she'd just banged her arm and bruised it. I hugged her tight and told her she'd be alright. She'd hurt her face too, but it didn't cross my mind what was going on until I went to bed. It was just as I fell asleep that I understood that my dad, the same squeaky, duckling, imaginary games, laughing, smiling dad I'd loved with all my heart right up to the point he changed, could be hurting my mother. I was afraid to leave my mum in the morning, so I started coughing like crazy. She tucked me up on the sofa and I pretended to be asleep and heard my dad shouting and my mum trying not to let him wake me up, which made him shout more. I opened my eyes in time to see him hit my mum and leave. My body froze. As soon as the door closed, I rushed to my mum's side. The next day, when he came back, he was all lovey-dovey, looking for forgiveness. I expected Mum to turn him right away, but she let him in. He still lives with us, and he's been nice so far. He'll snap any day now. And to this day, that still gives me absolute chills to read, because it's so damn real, and you feel her shock. You feel that she doesn't quite understand why he's being like this. You understand her fear of that unpredictability, and it gets to you. In another of Jacqueline Wilson's books, this one's called Lola Rose, and the main character is also a young girl with an abusive father. And in this book, he comes home from work early, and because she doesn't know what mood he's going to be in, because he can be unpredictable and dangerous, she immediately has to start fawning over him to try and appease him, to try and keep him happy, to try and calm him down if he's upset, to try and stop him getting violent. And this is something that I think a lot of us kids who've grown up with dads like that, we had to try and learn to do at a young age, to put on a cute voice and to try and be friendly and to calm him down and appease these angry men. And it's so real. I breathed in. "Hi, Daddy," I said in this false, small girly voice. "Hi, Princess," Dad said, and he patted the arm of his chair. I perched there obediently. I stretched a smile across my face while my eyes swiveled all around the room, looking for a forgotten fiver on the rug, under the coffee table, tucked in the telly mags. I couldn't see any, but I still couldn't breathe out comfortably. Dad was in a good mood, but he could turn in seconds. You never knew what might set him off. Some silly little thing you said, sometimes just a look, sometimes it seemed like no reason at all. It was as if Dad's head was wired up weirdly, and every so often he was programmed to explode. I also like how Jacqueline always explores how complex these types of families can be and makes it clear why people stay, because oftentimes abusers like this, they aren't just mean, grumpy. That's not realistic. They go through stages of love bombing and being so kind and sweet and the funniest, most charming people you'll ever know, and then they can also just turn. And Jacqueline always explores this, and I think that's a really good thing. So, like, even with little lines like, Mum always softened when Dad called her babe. She forgot that he could also call her a dozy cow or worse. And I feel like this is something that Colleen, to her detriment, never really explores. She's so quick to vilify Atlas's stepdad as this angry gambling addict who drinks too much, and his mum as an angry depressed woman who sleeps all day and only perks up when she wants to shout and throw things at him. But what about the rest of their lives? What about the rest of their personalities? What about the moments that actually show why Atlas loves his mum and why this whole feeling is so conflicting for him? What about perhaps showing us what his mum sees in the stepdad and, why she actually stays with him? Maybe show us her having fleeting moments of remorse or worry for her kid's well-being. I don't know, just something to make it a little bit more real and less like cartoon villains who are just like, ooh, grumpy, I'm gonna smash things up. We all hate each other, because that's not what families are really like, and that's why it's so difficult. And Atlas leaving again would have been so much more impactful if, for example, he'd wanted to stay to protect his mum from the stepdad, or he'd wanted to stay because there are moments of love and care he received from his mum and he was trying to get them back or something like that. I don't know, I wanted more. I wanted to be more real. I wanted them to be fleshed out characters, and they just weren't. So listen to this from Colleen. For so long, I'd blamed him for everything that went wrong in that household, but everything wrong with that household started with her. Tim simply amplified what was already an awful environment. I remember thinking that I would rather be dead than back with her. Up until that moment, there was a part of me that still held something for her. I don't know if it was a sliver of respect, but I was somehow able to appreciate that she'd kept me alive when I was younger. But isn't that the most basic thing a parent should do when they decide to bring a child into the world? I realised at that point I'd been giving her too much credit. I always blamed our lack of a bond on her being a single mother, but there are a lot of busy single mothers out there who somehow still bonded with their children. Mothers who took up for their children when they were being mistreated. Mothers who wouldn't look the other way when their 13-year-old came away from a punishment with a black eye and a busted lip. mothers who didn't allow their husbands to force their school-aged children into homelessness, mothers who didn't throw screwdrivers at their children's head. This is the most Colleen does to flesh out the characters, and it's just not enough. Compare this to something like Jacqueline Wilson, again in the book Lola Rose, where... So Lola's mum, who usually has nothing, they're a poor family, has just won £10,000 on a scratch card. And the dad decides they need to all go out to celebrate. They need to all go out to dinner to celebrate. And at dinner, as a lot of these men do, he gets drunk and he starts to flirt with these other women at a nearby table. So the mum is upset and gets drunk in response. The little brother starts playing up because that's what kids do. And our main character, our narrator, she's about 10 at this point. She is the one who has to try and hold everything together. God, you're not still hungry, Mum said, pouring a new bottle of wine. God, you're not still thirsty, I said. Don't you go all snippy with me, miss, said Mum, giving me a kick under the table. She was wearing her best black high heels with very pointy toes. That hurt, Mum. Rubbish, said Mum, but she reached under the table and rubbed my shin. There. That better? She was leaning so far forward, she overbalanced and ended up under the table. Whoops, she tried to get up and banged her head. She started half laughing, half crying. Mum, I hissed, trying to hook her out. Mum, said Kenny, giggling, thinking it was a big joke. He slid off his chair and squatted beside her, going shh, as if it were a game of hide and seek. Oh, please get up, Kenny. Mum, Dad will see. Quick. She couldn't be quick to save her life. She just crouched there, clutching Kenny, tickling him now. Dad was looking our way, and I gave him a sickly grin, waving like everything was all right. Dad stopped singing and came over to us. What the hell? What are you playing at, Nikki? Are you drunk? Said Dad. No, but what a good idea. Let's all get drunk to celebrate. I'm Lady Luck, that's what I am, Mum said, hauling herself up. Her hair was all tousled and her mascara was smudged. You look a right mess, said Dad. Come on, let's go home. Jump to it. We jumped. I was scared all the way home, wondering what was coming. There was this awful voice of doom in my head. He's going to beat her up. Maybe Mum could hear the voice too. She started singing to shut it up, all her old favourite pop songs. Then Kenny started whimpering and Mum picked him up, balancing him on her hip, singing Mr. Sandman. She used to sing it to me when I was little, very softly, very slowly. Whenever she came to lend me your ear bit, she'd nuzzle it, pretending she was going to nibble it right off. It always soothed me and made me go to sleep. But Mum's voice was too high and wobbly now. Dad didn't join in the singing. He didn't say a word the whole way home. The first thing he did when he got in was pour himself a large glass of whiskey, and he drank it back like tap water. Right, here we are, our happy little family. Lucky us, won the lottery. Only it's just suddenly occurred to me, Nikki, you've been acting a bit odd about all this. Why didn't you tell me right away, eh? Why didn't you yell it out the minute I got in? And when the girl tries to stand up for her mum and jump in and try and calm everything down, he turns around and says, Get to bed this instant, you cheeky little cow, said Dad. He got out of his chair and raised his hand. I wanted to be brave, but I couldn't help squealing then. I didn't make much noise, but Mum came running. She saw us, Dad's hand in the air, me ducking like we were both playing a grim game of statues. It's you. You spoil everything. Even a lovely thing like Mum winning the lottery. It's all spoiled because of you and your moods and your shouting and your hitting. I knew you'd be like this. Why can't you just be like a real dad? I yelled. Dad's head jerked as if I'd hit him. He stood still, shaking his head as if he couldn't quite work it out. I think that's why he hit me. He didn't know what else to do. It was a slap across the face that lifted me right off my feet. I ended up flat on my back on the carpet. Mum leapt at Dad, scratching his face with her long nails. He punched her, and then when she was on the ground beside me, he kicked her. Then he spat at both of us and walked out. The door slammed behind him. And the poor kid tries to excuse being hit by her dad and saying that it's not actually that bad because I'm okay. He hit you much, much more. And that's when the mum decides they all need to run away. So I know the Colleen Hoover scene and the Jacqueline Wilson scene were very different because the kids were different ages. In Lola Rose, she was 10. In It Starts With Us, he was 17. But both were children being physically assaulted by a parent, and yet one portrayal felt much more real and nuanced and emotive than the other. I just feel like, especially if your work, supposedly for adults, is being outshone in every way by someone writing for literal children, then you might need to reevaluate your own work and look at what's wrong with it and why it's not good enough. What I think is even worse is that Colleen Hoover somehow still manages to romanticize the abuse in her books in some ways, not in the sense that we're made to feel like the abuser is romantic or sexy, but in that she's kind of like, well, if it wasn't for the abuse, then we would have never found each other and fallen in love, and therefore some good came of it, and that sort of thing. It's an issue. Like, listen to this. I can't tell you what the rest of the day was like. To feel so incredibly unwanted, unloved, alone. I had no one, nothing. No money, no belongings, no family, just a wound. We're impressionable when we're younger, and when you're told you're nothing for years on end by everyone you should mean something to, you start to believe it, and you slowly start to become nothing. But then I met you, Lily, and even though I was nothing, when you looked at me, you somehow saw something I couldn't see. You were the first person in my life to show an interest in who I was as a human. No one had ever asked me questions about my life the way you did. After those few months I spent getting to know you, I stopped feeling like I was nothing. You made me feel interesting and unique. Your friendship gave me worth. I just can't help but feel like Colleen Hoover just wanted to write some generic, tragic backstory for Atlas and Lily, and then make Lily the hero in it all who saved Atlas, and how that makes her all the more special and their love all the more special, instead of actually providing decent representation and a source of hope for kids who've also been through this kind of abuse. And I think that's why it bothers me. Lily says, my throat is so thick with burgeoning tears I can't even verbally respond to what I just read. I set the phone on my leg and wipe at my tears. I hate that he's driving right now, because if we were parked, I'd throw my arms around him and hug him tighter than he's ever been hugged. I'd probably kiss him too and pull him into the back seat, because no one has ever said such heartbreakingly sad things in such a sweet way to me before. I'll be honest, if I heard someone I cared about had been abused that badly as a child, my first response wouldn't be, let me kiss you and have sex with you in a car. Just saying. I don't know, it just feels poorly handled by the author. Then out of nowhere they start talking about weddings and stuff like that, and Lily starts gushing about how she wants a big expensive wedding and a big expensive dress, and then to travel all over Europe and kiss in front of the Eiffel Tower. And she says things like, I'm grateful for Atlas because I know he's the standard I now hold people to. He's the standard I should have held Ryle to from the very beginning. So there's that, oh look, no one else is good enough except this one love interest trope again. It's just being absolutely spelled out for us this time. But also, Atlas isn't this high standard. He's the bare minimum. Being moderately better than an abuser, or like not quite as abusive as a physical abuser, isn't this gold standard we should all be aspiring to. I don't get the appeal. I don't. Then Atlas is like, I'm not going to kiss you because it won't be as good as our first teenage kiss, which is a choice. Lily goes to pick Emerson up from Alyssa's house, and of course Ryle is there because the plot demanded it. He notices she's dressed up in nice clothes for once, and not like mum clothes, so he's like, we need to talk. And he drags her up onto the rooftop where she first met him when he was smashing furniture. And again, he's super angry with her at this point as well about something, and probably the clothes she's wearing or whatever. And not to victim blame, but if you know this man has physically assaulted you in the past and has anger issues, and you know he's currently angry with you now, and he's likely to get violent because that's who he is, you probably shouldn't go up onto a rooftop, a very, very high rooftop, alone with him. Just saying, it's not a smart choice. Apparently, he is not mad about Lily having been out tonight, surprisingly. He's just mad because he's just realised that when Lily gave their daughter the middle name Dory, that's a reference to Finding Nemo, which is the film that her and Atlas used to watch together as kids. And so now he's mad that she named their daughter after her ex, essentially. And I don't like Ryle. I will never like Ryle. I will never generally be on his side, but in this case, I think he has a point. If my partner named, let's say I don't want kids, so let's say we got a dog together or something like that, that was our dog, and my partner wanted to name that dog after one of their exes, I'd be like, get out of my life. Like, that is something to be mad about. It absolutely is. And of course, he gets angry and violent because this is what abusers do. I tried to sidestep around him, but he moves with me. I glance over my shoulder to measure the distance between myself and the ledge. Not that I feel like he'd throw me over, but I also didn't think he'd be capable of shoving me down a flight of stairs. See, this was a stupid idea. You're going to get yourself killed. And this might have been a mistake that deserves more discussion, but I don't feel comfortable having a conversation about it with Ryle on a rooftop without witnesses. You're making me nervous. Can we go back downstairs? Ryle's entire demeanour changes as soon as I say that. It's like he punctures against the sharp insult. Lily, come on. He moves away from the door and walks all the way to the other side of the balcony. We're arguing. People argue. Christ. He spins away from me, giving me his back now. Here comes the gaslighting. He's attempting to make me feel crazy for being scared, even though my fear is more than warranted. I stare at him for a moment, wondering if this argument is over or if he has more to say. I want it to be over, so I open the door to the stairwell. Lily, wait. I pause because his voice is much calmer, which leads me to believe he might be capable of a verbal disagreement rather than an explosive fight tonight. He walks back over to me with a pained expression. I'm sorry, you just know how I feel about anything related to him. And I mean, this stuff could be good, it could be interesting, this back and forth, his unpredictable mood, the inclusion of things like gaslighting, even if we're told it's happening rather than seeing it happening. The problem here is with how it's written. Look back at those Jacqueline Wilson scenes and see how each of those steps was just shown to us through the actions, the tone of voice, the movements, and things like that. Colleen just tells us straight up. I want to see gaslighting represented in a novel, not just be told, here's gaslighting, with nothing else. Colleen Hoover is just a poor writer, and that's the issue here. All these scenes like this are just tell. She thinks us readers are stupid and she needs to lay everything out for us. And reading a Colleen Hoover book is like, you know, when you see videos of like a studio audience and there's like a person who holds up a sign being like, clap, laugh. That's what she does with her books. That's the entire book. We're just being told how we should feel at any given time instead of being shown things happening and being allowed to feel our own feelings. Lily leaves and goes and has a cry, and the chapter ends. Atlas gets a chapter, and just as his date was ending, his mum shows up at his restaurant, so he continues to make his mum this one-dimensional villain as he goes to see her. She has that same unaffected expression she's always had when she looks across the table at me. There's a small frown playing at the corner of her mouth, but it's always there. She's constantly, albeit inadvertently, frowning. She's completely stoic, as if I'm the one who should speak first. I don't. Is this all yours? She finally asks, waving her hand around the restaurant. I nod. Wow. To anyone else watching us, they might think she's impressed, but they don't know her like I know her. That one word was meant as a put-down, as if she's saying, wow, Atlas, you're not smart enough for something like this. The mum then reveals that Atlas has a secret younger brother that he didn't know about. He was born, like, after he left. She was pregnant when he left, that sort of thing. The brother surprisingly has a normal name, which is Josh. There we go. And the kid is now... This is where it gets confusing with the ages. But the kids run away, and it seems like he's the one who's been breaking into Atlas's restaurant and graffitiing everywhere and all that sort of thing. So Atlas ran away 13 years ago when he was 17, nearly 18. The kid is now 11, which just about makes sense if you assume Atlas actually ran away 12 years and 8 months ago, but the kid turns 12 next month, and then the mother conceived the kid on the day that Atlas left, or thereabouts. I don't know, I'm being picky and annoying. It's weird though, because in this scene they make it very clear that this kid is 11 years old. 11. But in another scene later, like a couple of days later, maybe a week later, the kid is suddenly 12 years old, and he's 12 for the rest of the book. He doesn't have a birthday in that time. His age just magically changes. So, like I say, Atlas puts it all together that the Vandal kid must be his brother, and he's like, I'm going to have to spend the whole night at the restaurant to catch him, see if he breaks in again, so I'm going to make sure he's safe, blah, blah, blah. I better do that, right? No, wait, actually, I'm first going to drive 5 miles to go hug Lily, because screw helping an 11-year-old boy, right? So he drives 5 miles to do that, he hugs her, he drives 5 miles, and then he just leaves and drives 5 miles back. Get your priorities straight, mate. In that time, the kid could have been and gone, got hurt, got lost in... Get your priorities straight. And also, you know who this kid is now. You know he's missing. You know he's currently homeless and hungry. Call the police. Call social services. Get some help, right? In Lily's chapter, Atlas has said he's come over for a hug, but he hasn't been yet. So I brush my teeth just in case a hug is a kiss. And then I changed clothes twice until I end up back in the pajamas I had on when I FaceTimed him. I'm trying way too hard to look like I'm not trying too hard. Sometimes being a woman is so dumb. This has nothing to do with you being a woman and everything to do with being a terrible Colleen Hoover protagonist. That's what makes you dumb, not the being a woman thing. Don't tar all us women with the same brush, please. We're not all like this. So anyway, he turns up, hugs her, leaves, ends a chapter. Not a big deal. In Atlas's chapter, he talks about his process of buying his restaurants, and once again, it proves that Colleen Hoover just knows nothing about the real world or how to exist in it or have a job or career. I mean, in the last book, she had, 22, 23-year-old Lily buying an entire florist by herself, even though she'd never worked in a florist for a day in her life. And she had barely 30-year-old Ryle as one of the best neurosurgeons in the city, despite the fact that most are barely qualified to be a neurosurgeon by that age, never mind be at the top of their field. And now you have an ex-soldier just buying a whole restaurant and making it one of the best in the city, again, despite never having worked in a restaurant for a day in his life. It just wouldn't happen. The bank would not give a man who has never worked in a restaurant a loan to buy a restaurant, surely. So Atlas is waiting for the kid. We just get pages upon pages upon pages of repeat journal entries from the last book. It's really boring. Atlas says, I don't know what to feel because I feel everything. Rage, love, sadness, happiness. Again, can you not tell us and just show us instead, please? It would be so much more interesting, and this book is so frustrating. He eventually catches the kid and gets him to come inside, and they eat a sandwich together, and Atlas... Kyra's outside on the balcony just watching me through the window. Sorry, she's very cute. Yeah, Atlas is like, I didn't even know you existed until a couple of hours ago, and the boy's like, of course you did, and Atlas is like, no, I didn't, and they're like, oh, okay, well, that's that plot point resolved. It's not the worst written scene in the book, but it's not good by any means. The kid says he has a bad relationship with the mother too, what a surprise, and that he doesn't want to go home, so Atlas invites him to come and stay with him. End of chapter. Lily's chapter again, and we get a few pages of her complaining that being a mother is hard and gross, and then she repeats all the divorce is hard stuff that we've had a million times in this book already. Pages of nothing happen when Lily's mum, who has mysteriously recovered from her illness, comes to babysit little Emmy. Lily calls Atlas up on the phone and then gets jealous that he's cooking a lot of food, so she thinks he must have had another woman over. Of course. And then she's like, oh no, wait, there's a child in the background. Oh my god, do you have a secret son I don't know about? It's all played off for humour, but it's not funny, and it didn't need to go on for as long as it did. Then Atlas's chapter again. It just, you see what I mean? Just nothing happens. Nothing happens. There's more nothing conversations between Atlas and people, and Atlas phones up his mum and is like, Josh can't stay here, and she's like, no, bring him back. And then Atlas is like, to Josh, she wants you back today, but I'll call a lawyer tomorrow. He'll call Child Protective Services if you want me to. There's not much more I can do on a Sunday. Except, one, that's not true, because Atlas already said that he'd been talking to a lawyer friend, so apparently it's fine to call them at like 1 a.m. on a Sunday morning, but not midday on a Sunday, or it's okay to call them at 7 a.m. on a Monday morning, but not midday on a Sunday. And social services, if you're going to call them, they don't care if it's a Sunday or not. If a kid's in danger, they're going to come, right? This feels like an excuse to drag out the plot, but it doesn't even hold up, because then, less than half a page later, he says, I wish I didn't have to return him to his mother, but I put in another call to my lawyer friend this morning. After talking with Sutton, the mother, and he said if I want to go about this the right way without her having ammunition against me, the only thing I can do is return him. Then if I want to take her to court, he said I need to get a lawyer and go through the process, blah, blah, blah. So he went from I spoke to a lawyer today to I can't speak to a lawyer today to wait, I did just speak to a lawyer again today in a single page. Make up your mind. Atlas goes to drop off Josh with the mother, Sutton, and I can see the rage in Sutton's eyes all the way from my position in the parking lot. She immediately begins yelling at him, and then she slaps him. It's like I'm reading the outline of a plot and not an actual book, you know? Being told all the beats of what's happening, but in an actual book we'd be shown it. We'd get some description. We'd feel some emotion. This is just a plot outline. And again, it's the one-dimensional villain thing, and I can't help but feel like this is such a bad representation of abusers, because abusers aren't angry all the time. They don't just go around hitting people for no reason at any opportunity. Often what's scariest is the unpredictability. You don't know if you're getting the nicest person in the world or the nastiest. And usually, like I say, they at least have some qualities that make the whole situation more complicated. Either they act nice in public so other people don't believe you, or they love bomb you, they hurt you and then act remorseful so you forgive them. Like, I can't help but feel like Colleen Hoover just doesn't really know what she's talking about, and it undermines the whole seriousness of the topic. And it bothers me. Atlas goes storming in and decides to remedy the violence with more violence, and he throws the mother on to her bed, and then he steals Josh away and takes him home. In the next chapter, nothing happens. Atlas brings Lily lunch, and it's just a bunch of talking about stuff we already know, except Josh has now been aged up to 12 instead of 11 in the space of 5 days without him having a birthday, so come on, Colleen, sort it out. In Atlas's chapter again, now 12-year-old Josh meets 12-year-old Theo. And, well, that happened, but it all happened off page. We don't actually see any of it. We're just told it happened. Okay. And then nothing happens. It's all just filler. In Lily's chapter, her and Atlas go to a wedding together of one of Lily's best friends / employees. And Lily takes this as an opportunity to be like, oh my god, you're such a better man than Ryle. And then he tells her all the times that Ryle hurt her, even though he was there for most of them and he knows about it anyway. And I kind of hate how this whole bit in this chapter is played to make, like, her experiences be about another man. Like, she's like, Ryle hurt me in these ways, and this is why you're so good, Atlas, and why you're better than him, and this is why Atlas. It just bothers me a bit. Every time I would start to take on the guilt and justify Ryle's actions, I would think about you. I would ask myself what your reaction would have been compared to Ryle's, because I know it would have been different. If I would have laughed at you under the same circumstances that I laughed at Ryle, you would have laughed with me. You never would have backhanded me. I stop speaking until Atlas brings his focus back to mine, and then I finish. Every time I would doubt myself and think that what Ryle did to me was in any way deserved, all it had to do was think about you, Atlas. I think about how differently each scenario would have been if you were there, and that helped me remember that none of it was my fault. You're a big part of the reason I got through it, even if you weren't there. And I just think that this narrative of a woman needing a better man, a good man, to show her what an awful bad man really is, and I don't know, like, this comparison, this needing a good man to save her regardless of him being there, or like, it just feels like it undermines her whole story. Why couldn't she have figured it out by herself and realised she was worth more than that? I wish this had been more of a she didn't need a man at all kind of thing. I don't know, I'm exhausted by this book. I'm really tired. Anyway, then Atlas kisses her and it's meant to be some romantic moment. Okay. In the next chapter, we actually get to the wedding. And this is a wedding that has been building up since chapter 1 of this book. And the entire wedding just happens off page. We're just told the wedding happened. All we get, this is the entirety of what we get. I can't really say how the wedding went because I was more focused on Lily than anything else. I didn't know anyone there, and after finally kissing Lily tonight, it was hard to focus on anything other than wanting it to happen again. I could tell Lily craved to be alone with me as much as I wanted to be alone with her. Being forced to patiently sit next to her after what happened between us in the hallway was torture. As soon as we got to the reception, Lily saw how crowded it was. She was relieved. She said Lucy would never know if we left early, and I don't even know Lucy, so I wasn't about to argue with her when, after less than an hour of mingling, she grabbed my hand and we slipped out. That's it. That's the whole wedding. Then, in comparison, we get an entire half page of Atlas giving Lily a piggyback across a car park. When they get back to Lily's house, Colleen decides to write in a totally like, oh my god, I'm not like the other girls, I'm so quirky and clumsy and silly scene, because I don't know why. We could have done without this. Let me change my clothes first. I walk into my closet and close the door. Also, Americans confuse me. Like a walk-in closet, wild. I just have a small wardrobe. Anyway, let me change my clothes first. I walk into my closet and close the door. I turn on the light and nothing happens. The bulb is out. Crap. I can't get dressed in the dark. I don't have my phone on me, so so I can't use the flashlight app to help. I do my best, but it takes a minute to get the zipper down. When I finally do, instead of stepping out of the dress, for some reason I pull the dress over my head, and of course it snags in my hair. I try to set my hair free, but the dress is heavy, and it's taking forever in the dark, and I can't walk out to find a mirror because Atlas is out there. I keep trying to untangle it. After a few defeating minutes, Atlas finally taps on the door. You okay in there? No, I'm stuck. Can I open the door? I'm standing in my bra and panties, with the dress halfway over my head, but this is what I deserve. This is closet karma. Okay, but I'm not really dressed. I hear Atlas laugh, and when he opens the door and sees my situation, he immediately springs into action by flicking the light switch. It does nothing, of course. Why do so many authors, especially in romance books, insist on writing scenes like this? Is it meant to make Lily relatable? Because I don't get it. And I don't find it funny. It's just awkward and cringy to read, isn't it? And then they kiss in the closet with lines like, he's taken it slow because I asked him to. I'm sure if I asked him to go faster, he would do that too. Considerate Atlas. No, that's just generally how sex works. You both communicate what you want and the other person listens. This is not, oh my god, super duper considerate. This is just the bare minimum of what a regular sexual interaction should be, isn't it? You communicate, you listen. Can we please stop praising men and acting like they're gods for doing the bare minimum? I'll keep saying it. They say they're not going to have sex because Atlas doesn't want to have to leave right after, and also because Colleen wants to drag this out and torture us for as long as possible. And there's lines like, every part of my body feels like it's on fire when he slips 2 more fingers into my underwear. Then, when his entire hand makes the move, I'm a goner. You're a goner? Peak erotica right there. Anyway, I don't even know how I want to talk about this next scene. He's got his hands up in there, and she orgasms, and we get a breast milk scene that I could have done without, I'll be honest. Lily? Atlas kisses me gently on the cheek. I think you... He pauses so my eyes open and look at him. He shifts his eyes to my breasts and then back at my face. Then he pulls at his white shirt and looks down at it, and I see there's some kind of stain on it. Oh crap. I look down at my bra and it's soaking wet. Oh my god. Breast milk. Everywhere. I'm such an idiot. Atlas doesn't seem at all fazed by it. He rolls off the bed and says, I'll give you some privacy. I'm a little mortified that my bra is covered in breast milk, so I grab the sheet and cover my chest with it before meeting Atlas at the foot of my bed. It kind of killed the mood. Are you leaving? Now, I get that this is probably a normal thing that happens to women in these situations, which is fine, but I don't understand why Colleen keeps bringing breastfeeding into this book in sexual situations and, like, making the breastfeeding like a sexual thing or making her milk production tied to sexual things. The only time she brings it up is in relation to sexual situations, and I don't enjoy it. That's all I'll say. Then, because why not, Lily and Atlas finally have sex. Atlas's chapter, and they have a post-sex talk about Josh, because I guess the plot needed it to happen now. Why not? This is odd. So Atlas says that after the mum hit him, he had to take Josh to the hospital, and they were legally obligated to notify Child Protective Services. I'm not sure how I feel about that, though. It puts the power in the hands of the state, and what if they don't think I'm the best place for him? Why wouldn't they? I work a lot, I'm not married, so Josh will be alone some of the time, and I have no experience raising kids. They might think Tim is a better fit since he's a biological father. They could even give him back to my mother. I'm not even sure what she did is enough to have him removed from her custody. We'll talk about this more in a bit, but there's like a weird anti-child services thing in this book, with Atlas seeming to be really against social services, which is weird because apparently Colleen Hoover used to be a social worker. Anyway, then they talk about the first time they had sex together when Lily was 15 and Atlas was 18 going on 19, and Lily's dad caught them together and beat up Atlas. And Atlas says that he wanted to press charges against the dad, but a nurse said to him, she looked at me sympathetically. I remember her exact words. She said, "The law is on his side, honey. No one turns him in, not even his wife." And then I thought this was finally an acknowledgement of the whole statutory rape thing, but Colleen clearly just doesn't care about it. "I did in any way," I say. "I knew if I didn't report him, your mother would never get out of that situation. I made the nurse contact an officer, and when one finally arrived that afternoon, he wasn't there to listen to my statement. He was there to make it clear that if anyone was going to be arrested, it wouldn't be your father. He said your father could have me arrested for breaking into houses and forcing myself on his daughter. Those were the officer's exact words. Like the relationship you and I had was something criminal. I felt guilty about that for years." Lily looks up at me and places a hand on my cheek. "What? Atlas, we're only 2.5 years apart. You did absolutely nothing wrong." So Colleen is making out like the law is wrong for having an age of consent. Also, in what world can a police officer be told about statutory rape and not arrest the rapist? That's madness, right? And also, surely both people committed the crime. The dad for beating him up and him for raping a child. Like, one crime doesn't cancel out the other. Surely they could both be arrested. I don't know. But this is Colleen Hoover trying to justify the whole child rape thing and be like, see, it was fine. We weren't that far apart in age. It was close to 3.5 years, if we're being honest. But I guess she doesn't want to address that, does she? The next morning when Lily wakes up, Atlas is gone, and Lily is awoken by Ryle banging on her door loudly. He's mad because Lily had a lie-in and dared to not immediately answer his phone calls the minute he called. So he turns up and Ryle is holding a wine glass in his hand, inspecting it. It's the one Atlas drank from. Mine is on the counter next to it, a clear indication that someone was here with me drinking wine last night. Before my underwear got removed and left on the couch. That's not a full sentence. Write properly. I can see Ryle's jealousy bubbling over when he sets down the wine glass and looks straight at me. Did someone stay the night? I don't bother denying it. I'm an adult, a single adult. Well, possibly not single anymore, but that's another matter. We're divorced, Ryle. You can't ask me questions like that. Maybe that was the wrong thing to say because Ryle immediately responds by taking 2 quick steps towards me. I can ask you if someone spent the night in the home my daughter lives in. Mate, your daughter wasn't even there. She was with a babysitter. Calm down. Lily's allowed to date. She's an adult. It's fine. Ryle's eyes narrowed, accusing. He looked disgusted by me. You won't leave her with me overnight, but you drop her off somewhere when you want to get effed? He laughs. Great parenting, Lily. Actually, yeah, I think it is good parenting on her part. She did everything right there. Absolutely fine. Ryle's looking at me from the hallway with a very flat effect when he says, "Is it him?" I can feel my heart catching my throat when he asks that. He doesn't say Atlas's name, but who else could he be referring to? I don't immediately deny it, which is enough of a confirmation for him. Ryle looks at the ceiling, then shakes his head. So I had a right to be concerned about him the whole time. Okay, again, I don't like Ryle. He's the monster, and I don't want to be on his side mostly. But in this very specific case, I am on his side here. He has every right to be upset about this. The man he was worried about is the man he should have been worried about, because not only was she emotionally cheating while they were together and pining after this other man and secretly messaging him and calling him behind his back and all this stuff, but now she's seeing him. I think he has a right to be upset. And yes, Lily can see anyone she wants now she's single, but I understand why he's upset about this, and he has every right to be upset. What I don't agree with, though, obviously, is Ryle's response, which is to get violent again. I think it's possible for them to be both wrong in this situation and both be bad people, just maybe some are worse people than others, you know? Ryle's the worst person. Okay, we're nearly done with this, I promise. In the next chapter, Lily takes Emmy and goes to Atlas's house while Josh is there. So all that stuff she said about, like, not wanting to rush things, not wanting him to meet her daughter yet, being careful who her daughter's around, respecting Ryle enough to not take their daughter around people without telling him first, that's all gone out the window. She doesn't care anymore. She's just like, yep, let's take her to go meet these 2 strange people and spend a whole day at their house and... I hate it. Atlas, of course, takes this as an opportunity to jump in right at the deep end. I'd be lying if I said this wasn't a little surreal. Deep down, I've known that Lily and I are going to work out. She's my person and I'm hers, and that's something I've known since the first week we met. But looking at Emerson, knowing this child is likely going to end up becoming a huge part of my life, that's a lot to take in. I could be her stepfather someday. I'll likely be more of an influence in her life than her biological father, because Lily and I will eventually move in together. We'll likely marry someday. I'd never admit any of this out loud because people like Theo would say I'm getting ahead of myself, but the truth is, I'm years behind where I want to be with Lily, where I could have been with her. And I know Colleen Hoover is trying to paint this as romance, but it's a bit intense, isn't it? You've been dating less than a month, mate. Calm down. The next day, Lily wakes up to a barrage of emotionally abusive texts from Ryle, with him telling her things like, "You disappoint me, I was happy before I met you, stop treating me like a monster. Mate, you are a monster, get out of here." In Atlas's chapter, Ryle shows up at his restaurant to beat him up, because of course he does, and Atlas is like, "You should be happy she's with me, I'll be a better husband than you ever were." And again, mate, it's been like 3 weeks, calm down. This is kind of like the climax of the book. This is the only conflict we ever get. One single incident and then it's just all resolved. It's done. After Ryle beats him up, Atlas goes to Lily's house and they have sex again, because why not? In Lily's chapter, it's the baby's first birthday party and she gets covered in cake. I hate being able to read at this point. I cannot stand messy children with food on their faces, not even fictional ones. It makes me gag. Lily then starts threatening Ryle with lawyers and saying that she's spoken to them and they've advised her to do this, this and this. It's all fiction. She's not spoken to anyone. They haven't advised her anything, but she threatens him anyway. Although I think she probably should, to be honest. Also, it's weird because at the start of the book, Lily was like, "I've never left my baby alone overnight." And now, 3 weeks later, she's left it like 3-4 times overnight. Like, it's just not an issue. Anyway, so Lily just dumps the baby with Alyssa again and goes to see Atlas while he's working in his kitchen. It's entirely pointless. She just sits there and eats a sandwich while he works for pages and pages. Nothing happens. Then they go back to his, and despite her not having a change of clothes with her, he just pulls her into the shower fully dressed so he can have sex with her. And now all her clothes are wet and gross, and this is disgusting, right? He catches my gasp in his mouth as he grips my thighs, pulling my wet, blue, jean-covered legs around him. Disgusting. Disgusting. Nothing worse than wet denim. No, you'll never convince me that's sexy. They have shower sex. Lily does mention she's on birth control, so I have to commend Colleen Hoover there for putting that in. Great. And then because they've been dating like a whole 3 weeks, Atlas gets super intense. "I wish I could have you in my bed like this every night. I want to shower with you and cook with you and watch TV with you and go grocery shopping with you. I want everything with you. I hate that we have to pretend like we don't already know we're going to spend the rest of our lives together." We aren't pretending. We are going to spend the rest of our lives together. How long do we have to wait until we start? From the looks of it, we've already started. How long do I have to wait before I ask you to move in with me? 6 months at least. And how long before I'm allowed to propose? A year. A year and a half. A year from when we move in together, or a year from now. Is this love bombing? Because this feels like love bombing, right? Did your last relationship not teach you anything about not jumping in and marrying a man you've known for 5 minutes? We're also 80% of the way through this book and nothing has happened. Nothing at all. Atlas and Lily decide to say "I love you" to each other, and then Atlas is going to drive Josh up to Vermont to meet his abusive dad. I hate this bit. Right, okay. On the drive up, the kid Josh, he's reading this like manga, and then Atlas says, "If he ends up staying with me, maybe I should buy him a few self-help books for balance. I'll stock his bookshelves with whatever graphic novels he wants, and then secretly slip in a few of my own to supplement my lack of skills as a guardian. Untamed, Man Enough, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Heck, maybe even some sacred texts from every major world religion. I'll take whatever help I can get." No, stop, don't. Do not give these books to a 12-year-old boy. Stop it. Mostly it's the Mark Manson one I have a problem about. If you haven't seen this video of mine, you might not realise that Mark Manson is a misogynistic piece of crap. The guy who wrote bestseller The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F is a raging misogynistic pickup artist who wrote a book called Models about how to pick up any woman you can, how to manipulate women into sex, and how no does not mean no and consent doesn't matter. And there's basically whole chapters that are a guide to raping women. It is terrible. Do not give anything written by him to a child. What is hilarious, though, is that the other recommendation here, Man Enough, was written by Justin Baldoni, who is the guy who is playing Ryle and directing the It Ends With Us film.
Oh, that's my brother Ryle.
The first official customer?
Well, you'd have to buy something to be considered a customer. Right now, you're just loitering.
Interesting. I've not read that book, so I can't comment on it. But what I will say is that in my own experience, be very wary of men who read nothing but self-help books. It is like the biggest red flag out there. Anyway, they get there. Josh looks at his dad through the window and realizes that, oh my god, he's so terrible, blah, blah, blah. Like, Tim's outside, making his way from the front door to his truck. Josh and I watch in mutually stunned silence. He looks fragile, older and smaller. Or maybe that's because I'm no longer a kid. He's swigging from the last of a beer can when he opens the front door to his truck. He tosses the empty can into the bed and then leans inside the cab in search of something. Anyway, now, after this big long drive, Atlas only then decides to tell Josh that Tim was also physically abusive with him when he was a kid. And it's like, did you not think to speak about this before? Discuss this before? I don't know. So Josh decides, after not meeting his dad, to just go home and live with Josh. And we could have got here a lot sooner if the characters had just bothered to speak to each other. There's so much speaking in this book, but no one ever says anything that they need to. There's more of this bumhole conversation, discussion, joke. I don't get it. Atlas keeps being like, it's one word, not two. But I don't know how you're supposed to say it differently. Like, bumhole. What's the difference? I don't know. I'm so confused. I hate this stupid joke. Hate it. In the next chapter, Lily is going to have a serious chat with Ryle about custody stuff with Alyssa present, and this is like meant to be the big climax of the book. But shouldn't this have been done 12 months ago when the kid was born? Or even before the kid was born? I don't know. So they ambush Ryle. They don't give him any time to prepare or speak to lawyers or do anything that might help him. They just ambush him. They're like, this is how it's going to be. And he's like, yeah, okay. Basically, they say things like he needs to have anger management lessons or classes or counselling, whatever. Words are hard. And he's also going to be supervised for all his visits with Emmy from now on, which is absolutely fair. Great. That's it. Ryle just agrees to it. There's no drama. There's no nothing. Lily has been telling us for the whole book, this is going to cause conflict, this is going to cause drama, this is going to cause so many problems. And then it actually happens, and it's just nothing. I hate this book so much. Time skips forward several months for no reason, and Atlas asks Lily to move in with him exactly 6 months after they started dating via a letter. As soon as I finished the letter, I set it down and wiped my eyes. If this is how much I cry when he asked me to move in with him, I have no idea how I'll survive a proposal. Or wedding vows, for that matter. I don't care enough about these characters to find this emotional. And I love a bit of mush. I do. I am a very emotional person. I will cry at everything. Like, I was at my friend Sim and Molly's wedding the other day, and when they had their first dance, I was sobbing. I hadn't even had a glass of wine at that point. I was just sobbing. Anytime I watch something sad on TV, like, anything can make me cry. Books make me cry. Everything makes me cry. This just makes me want to be sick. How am I supposed to feel emotional about such awful, flat, boring characters? It just doesn't do anything for me. I don't care about them enough to feel emotional about this stuff. So they move in together. There's another time jump for the very last chapter. And in this, they're clearly getting married. It's their wedding day, and it's full of the, oh my god, I love you. No, I love you. None of it's interesting. It's just kind of boring. The thing I hate, though, is Atlas, it ends with Atlas reading his vows just to the audience, not to Lily. We don't see the actual wedding ceremony. We just read the vows on a piece of paper. And it says things like, optimistically speaking, we could live our entire lives together, happily, until we're old and frail, and it takes an entire day for me to just reach your lips and kiss you goodnight. If that happens, I vow that I will be immensely grateful for the love that carried us through our life together. I do not care. And then the worst bit is the very, very last line of the book, and the last line of Atlas's wedding vows to Lily are, prepare yourselves for this. P.S. It is my wish for you to be my fish. And then it just ends. I absolutely can't deal with this. So, in conclusion, there is absolutely no need for this book to exist. This is just a series of short scenes of them existing near each other, with no plot, no tension, no stakes, no character development. This is worse than if it had just been fan fiction of the first book, you know? It did not need to exist. It is lazy, it is poorly written, it is poorly executed. It's just a cash grab from Colleen Hoover. And I didn't think it was possible to respect her less, but coming out of this book, somehow I do. I hated every moment of this book. Was it as bad as the first one? No. Was it still poorly written, boring and pointless? Yes. Do not recommend 1 out of 10 stars. However, I would like to take a moment to appreciate some of the amazing Goodreads reviews that are out there for this book. Welcome to Did This Book Really Need to Exist? Part 434 blah, blah, blah. Alternatively titled, A Bland Man Does the Bare Minimum and People Eat It Up Like He's an Austen Character. This is what I've been talking about. See? Atlas talking and defending himself about the age he and Lily had sex was really breaking the fourth wall. Coho definitely was trying to un-F up her mistake by making that a sympathy point. Thank you. Read this book out of curiosity, but I really think I should have just stayed curious. If a man asks me wholeheartedly to become his fish on our wedding day, I'm leaving him at the altar. I feel you, Lisa. I do. Zoe says, in short, It Starts With Us is nothing but an extended epilogue that could have been a bonus chapter. Everything about this book annoyed me, from the lack of plot and bland characters, to commentary devoid of nuance and whole sections of the first book copied and pasted into the text. Something smells like a cash grab. I'll admit, the discussion around abuse in this book wasn't as bad as it was in It Ends With Us, but it still felt pretty one-dimensional and annoyed me at times. I can't for the life of me understand why this series is hailed as one about ending the cycle of abuse, since the cycle of abuse in the books doesn't even end. I like Zoe. Zoe is smart. I read all these reviews after I'd written my script for this video, but some of them are just summarising all my thoughts perfectly. They're great. I don't support burning books, but this one is an exception. Truly, what was the purpose of this novel? There was no development in the romance since Atlas and Lily were already in love in book 1. The only interesting scenes were the ones with Ryle, but they were more I want to bash my head against a wall than anything else. Also, I couldn't wrap my head around the whole bumhole and bumhole thing. I don't get why Atlas kept complaining about his mum and Josh saying it as 2 words when it's impossible to say bumhole separately. Like, try it. Exactly! Thank you! Come on. And finally, this one which just says, seek serious help. Couldn't agree more. So there we go. That is Colleen Hoover's It Starts With Us. An absolute waste of all our times. But thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate it so much. Please don't forget, follow me over on social media. I use Instagram mostly at Rachel Oates with a 0 instead of an O. And yeah, that's anything else you want to find out down in the video description. Some book recommendations down there, all sorts of fun stuff. But yeah, for now, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and everything down in the comments. Subscribe if you're new here. I hate self-promotion. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. I've got a very grumpy little Koobie at that door who wants to go for a walk, so I'm going to go take her out now. But thanks all. I'll see you again later. See you again later? See you later. See you again soon. Words! I'm so tired. I think Colleen Hoover's giving me brain rot, if I'm being honest.